Good morning, Don Palayo here. It's Sunday, July 13th, 2025. Sunday morning again, so you guys probably know where I'm at. I'm over here near my parents' house. I'm going to getting ready to go visit them this morning. It's not even 7 a.m. yet, so I'm going to give it a little bit. I always get over here really early. I stopped and got gas, and I'm just going to hang out and make one of my videos while I'm sitting here. Looking at the news right now. I don't know, I don't want to go on about the Epstein thing too much, but I don't think that I don't know if he just doesn't realize, or Trump is coming out and saying that people don't care about Jeffrey Epstein. They care about what we're getting done. And people do care about what they're doing, but they want some answers to that case too. Trump's base, a lot of his voters feel like government is trying to cover something up. They don't like that. They don't want the government covering something up, especially something like, underage girls being abused. We don't want the perpetrators of that being protected by the government. That's not a good look, you guys. So y'all need to come up with some kind of answers, a little bit more than what we've gotten. Why is, if there's nothing to show, if there was nothing to it, why is there a lady sitting in prison right now? Why is Maxwell in prison? Nobody is buying that there's nothing. Nobody's buying that. Right now we're feeling like the Democrats were covering things up, and now we feel like the Trump administration is protecting people. And we don't care. The Trump base does not care who it is. Whoever was involved in that, we don't care how important a world leader they were. We don't care how important of a business leader they were. We don't care. That does not matter. If these people were guilty of abusing underage girls, they need to be behind bars, period, end of story. That's the way it is. That includes any government politicians as well, our own government. They need to be behind bars too. There's not a different set of laws for you people, so y'all are just going to have to get used to that. Anyway, nobody is buying what Trump is trying to say right now. He needs to bring, they need to bring some charges against someone. They need to, there needs to be something more than what we've gotten, because right now it's not a good look. The Trump base feels like there are people being protected by the government, and not just people, but people that have abused underage girls. So that's not a good look. So I did not do anything yesterday. I was going to DoorDash yesterday. I took a long afternoon nap, overslept, and missed my DoorDash cutoff. And I woke up and I was like, it was thundering outside, and I'm like, I am not going to get out of this bed. So I was basically indoors all day yesterday. Didn't lay in bed the whole day, but pretty close to it. I don't know what. Since about Wednesday night, I have just not been feeling right. I can't, it's kind of hard to explain. I've had little bouts of being just really lightheaded, and I've been trying to drink water, making sure that I'm hydrated, and I checked my blood pressure. My blood pressure's perfect right now. It's like it couldn't be better. So I don't know what the deal is. So I don't know. I felt a little lightheaded, a little spacey, a little bit, and just I don't know. So maybe it's just I'm getting old. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but something. I just haven't felt right, the last few days. So I kind of took a little break from my DoorDash. I've got to get back at it. Because I have goals that I want to hit financially, and I'm trying to hit these goals. I'm trying to hit these targets, and it's been hard lately because the door dashing hasn't been as good. People have been pulling in, haven't been ordering food as much. Their tips have been lower, things like that. So anyway, I've been thinking a lot, about my daughters again. A lot of my thoughts now go to the world that we're leaving for our kids. I can deal with pretty much anything that comes. It's like if things got real bad, I have a tent. I have a tent. I could go out in the woods, pitch my tent out there in the woods, and live in the tent if I had to. Or I could live out of my car. I can get by on very little. I really can. I think a lot of guys are like that too. Most guys are like that. We can live pretty minimally when we have to, and girls are all about having the nice fancy house and having having it all decorated and all that. Us guys, we don't care. We really truly don't care. We really don't. I don't think most guys care about all that. There are a few maybe soy boys out there that do, but most guys, it's like as long as we have we have a home. Most of us do want to have a home, have a place to go. We don't want to live out of our car, out of our tent, but if things got bad enough, we could do it. We like having a home. We like having a comfortable bed to lay in, having a stocked refrigerator at home. But above and beyond that, we're pretty comfortable. So that's the way most guys think. Everything else is kind of gravy. It's like we're not really out there trying to, and there are guys out here that they make it a life goal or something to live in $1 million home, or that was never one of my goals. I never, I wasn't one of these people out here, I have to live in a 5,000 square foot house. If I don't, I'm just a failure. So, I've never been like that. That has never been me. So now, some people, there are other things that I like to spend money on. I like to travel when I can. That's kind of a big part of my plans for later on, and when I retire and everything. Still kind of debating how that's going to go. I talked to people at work about it, and people are like, "Yeah, you should go move to Europe and everything." And it sounds great. It sounds great on the face of it. I would love to, when I turn 62, move over to Europe and live for a few years. But then it's like, what if my elderly parents are still here? What's going to happen with my younger brother that needs somebody to kind of look after him? And then my kids are going to be here in the United States, most likely. They'll be adults at that point, but do I want to be retired and living 4,000 miles away from my kids? Do I want to do that? I don't know. The more I think about it, I think the more likely it is that what I'm going to do is just take some long trips to Europe. I may go to Europe for like a 3-month trip. You can stay in Europe with your with just a passport for 90 days, and that might be what I do. I may just travel to Europe for the 90-day period and knock out each of those hikes that I want to do. I don't know yet. That's still a work in progress, what I'm going to do later on. It's going to depend on a number of factors, but as we get closer, the picture is going to get clearer and clearer as we get closer to that time. I'm a little bit concerned about the stock market right now. I think I mentioned that on my prior video. It feels like we're kind of in a weird time right now, because I do see some things that Trump's trying to do that are starting to unfold. I saw, there's been some big announcements. This past week there were some from some manufacturers that are actually reshoring jobs from China to the United States. General Electric was one. I think there was another one too. I can't remember right now, but General Electric's bringing back making appliances. I think it was specifically washers and dryers. They had been making them in China. Well, they're bringing those jobs back over here to the United States and building a plant in Kentucky to do that. Or maybe they're expanding a plant in Kentucky. I can't remember, but they're bringing a good number of jobs, and they're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in a plant there in Kentucky to make those washers and dryers. Anyway, so that's good news. I'd like to see more of the news like that over the next 6 months to a year leading up to the midterms next year. If we see more stories like that where companies are bringing jobs back, and a lot of that's happening because of Trump's tariffs, that's a win. I mean, Trump can campaign on that all day long, and the Republicans will likely do well. If people are still hurting, if there's not as much good economic news, I worry about Democrats taking over one or both houses of Congress, and then it's going to be a mess for the remainder of Trump's presidency. So I hope that voters will give Trump a full 4 years with a Republican Congress to really work his plan. I do feel like some positive momentum is starting to happen, but we've got a lot more to do, and it's going to take the full 4 years for Trump to get some of this stuff done. But in the meantime, the stock market we're sitting at all-time highs with the stock market. Anytime the stock market gets at all-time highs, I start getting a little bit nervous. It's like, okay, the S&P 500 has basically doubled over the last 5 years. I just don't know. That feels like a little bit. The growth has been pretty substantial over the last 5 years, coming out of COVID and everything. And I'm just feeling like, when is that shoe going to drop? When are we going to get a big major market pullback again? And I think that if you watch what Warren Buffett's doing, Warren Buffett's holding a little more cash these days. And whenever he does that, it's like there's a reason he's doing that. He's waiting for the market to collapse so that he can come in with his cash and start buying things for cheap. And Buffett's known for doing that. And right now he's holding a lot of cash, and I'm just like, that makes me nervous. I think tomorrow, I'm going to reduce my stock market exposure a little bit, at least the growth portion of my portfolio. I'm a little bit leery right now. I'm probably going to go more into commodities for the time being. Metals. I already hold a substantial portion of my IRA in gold and silver ETFs, and I think I'm probably going to add to those positions tomorrow. I may add a little bit of dividend-bearing stocks, to the value end of my portfolio. I may add to those positions a little bit, but the growth portion is the more volatile piece of the stock market. So that's where I'm going to focus on my reductions a little bit. I'll probably add maybe some consumer staple things in there. There's an ETF that tracks the price of consumer staples, things that people have to buy, whether the economy is good or bad. So things like soap, companies like Colgate or Palmolive, or I think Coca-Cola is probably in there. There's different brands that are pretty much things that people are going to buy regardless of how the economy is doing. So I may load up on some of that tomorrow. So things I'm thinking about, just to let y'all know, this is what I'm thinking right now. This is not a recommendation. Again, this is not a financial recommendation to anybody. This is just what I'm thinking about doing with my portfolio. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. It just seems, the stock market seems real frothy right now. As many of you know, I'm not a big believer in cryptocurrency. I mean, the people that have done it have done well. I understand that. There's part of me that kind of compares cryptocurrency to the 16th century Dutch tulip bubble. I guess my hang up with cryptocurrency is that there's nothing tangible to it. I don't want to be in dollars either, don't get me wrong. I don't want to be in dollars either. But I would much rather have physical gold or silver than I would Bitcoin. That's just me. I want something tangible. Even when you own stocks, you own a part, you have a part ownership in that business. So you're a part owner of all of the physical holdings of the business, their buildings and their machinery and all of that. You're a part owner in that. With cryptocurrency, it's like, I feel like it could vanish tomorrow and there's nothing, not to mention, it's like, it anything like online like that, you just feel like, how safe is it? How, could somebody steal it? I don't know. There's a million little things that I worry about with cryptocurrency. And anyway, that's just my feeling about it. So I've got a little bit of Bitcoin, believe it or not. I do have just a tiny little dab and not much at all. But I do look at it every once in a while to see how it's doing, and it has gone up some, but I can't see myself investing a substantial part of my investments into cryptocurrency. I'm just not going to do that. I am going to buy some more gold and silver. That's going to happen. So those ETFs that I hold, by the way, I do have a gold and silver ETF, exchange traded fund, in my IRA. And each of those funds holds physical gold and silver in a vault. They actually do have the gold and silver on hand in their vaults. They have a vault at a bank, and they hold that gold and silver there. So there is physical gold and silver backing that up. So it's not just, they say it's just paper gold and silver. Yeah, kind of, but at the same time, the fund itself does hold the physical gold and silver in their bank vault. So if you actually go and look at the fund, it'll tell you how many ounces they have in their vault. It'll tell you how many ounces of gold and silver they hold in their vault. It's kind of cool. But anyway, I am going to get going. I am going to go visit my parents today. I'm a little bit worried about my parents a little bit. My dad in particular he's had some memory issues here recently. He's 74 years old, and he's had a few things going on here lately where with his memory doesn't seem quite as sharp, and we're kind of a little bit worried about that. My mom is 5 years younger. She'll be 69. Whoa, like next week. Next Sunday she has her birthday, so she'll be 69, and I've noticed it a little bit with her, but mostly it's just she'll tell me something, and then like half an hour later she's telling me the exact same story, or whatever. And it's like, I don't really say much, but it's like I pick up on things like that. My brother and I have talked about it, and it's like my parents are getting older. It's like mentally, it's just, in my mind, my parents will always be like in their 40s. I don't know why. I'm in my 40s. I'm almost 50, but my parents will always in my brain seem like they're in their 40s or early 50s. But they're in, my mom's almost 70. My dad's going to be 75 next year, so they're getting up there. And it's hard to imagine life without my parents here. I don't want to even think about it, to be honest. It's like I don't really like to think about that. I don't like my mind going there, but I have to recognize that the time's growing short, and I try to come over and see them at least every week, every Sunday, and spend time with them. And it's kind of sad getting older a little bit. You start seeing people growing old and passing away, people that you grew up watching on TV or watching in movies, or people that were actively in your life. My parents, my grandparents, my grandparents passed away. The only grandparents that I really knew growing up were my dad's parents. My mom's parents, her mother passed away when I was like 4 years old. Her dad, she didn't have anything to do with her dad for the last part of his life. They didn't get along very well. Anyway, but he died, I think, when I was about 14. And then my grandparents, my dad's parents, his father died, I think, back in 2002. So 23 years ago. That's hard to believe. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago. And then my grandmother passed away in 2011, 14 years ago. That's crazy, but yeah, that's accurate. It's unfortunate, It's like I remember going and spending summers at their house, and it's kind of sad seeing these people pass away and realizing that my parents are getting close to that age, and then once they go, it's going to be I'm up to bat, right? I don't really worry so much about myself. I just don't like seeing the people that I care about passing away, and it's like with me, when I think about my own mortality, it's more like, how can I help my daughters the most that I can before I go? How can I maximize what I'm leaving my girls so that they don't have to struggle so much? I worry about the world that we're leaving for the kids. At the same time, I try to be optimistic that some of the things that we've struggled with, maybe maybe Gen X or the millennials will fix some of these things. There's a lot of complaints about healthcare in the United States. I could maybe see us going more towards a European model with universal healthcare. I've always been kind of opposed to that because I have a few reasons why I'm opposed to it. Mainly just because I know how it would go here in the United States. In Europe, they do have universal healthcare, but people don't go unless they have they don't go to the hospital unless they have something seriously wrong with them. Most of them, if they have a cold or something, they don't even go to a doctor. They'll just go to their local pharmacy, and the pharmacist tells them what they need and gives them medication for it. And I know here in the United States, if you gave everybody universal health care, every time they got a little sniffle, they're going to be up there at the emergency room wanting to be seen. And it's just, I just know how it would go here. It's like, I know how this is going to go in the United States. It's like, anyway, I'm not opposed, and everybody wants to say this is like, oh, that's socialist, well, the Europeans look at it just like we look at paying for police and fire. It's no different. So because we have the government paying for police, does that make us socialists? No? We're still a capitalist country. Europe is still capitalist. They just have additional things that they pay a higher tax for, so that everyone has access to it. Just like everyone has access here to police and fire, they have healthcare. They pay for healthcare out of their taxes. They're still capitalist countries over there. It's just they just have more things that their government provides for them. So I don't know. the other thing is, where does that end? I don't want it to get to a point where, well, government needs to give us this, government needs to give us that. We need, and another thing too is, like, part of it here in the United States especially is that there's people that don't really push themselves to earn to really maximize their potential. They don't really put a lot of effort into earning income, and then they expect the higher income earners to pay for all this stuff for them, and that's part of the problem too, is that so the people that are really go-getters and that are really really working hard to make something of themselves, they have to pay higher taxes to cover the people that don't want to do anything. And there's a part of me that doesn't like that. I don't particularly like that. So that's part of my thinking of why I haven't liked universal health care in the past. I feel like having the responsibility of providing for their own health care, it's kind of a little compulsion so that people will go out there and they have to go and earn their own. They have to go out there and get it themselves. So that's a lot of the Republican thinking on that. That's how a conservative looks at that. They worry that if government's providing things for people, that people are just not going to be real incentivized to go out there and work too hard and earn things for themselves. So that's the thinking there. Anyway, I'm going to get going. This video is almost half an hour already. This is Don Pelayo. You guys enjoy your Saturday, and I will Sunday. I'm sorry, Sunday. It's Sunday, and we'll talk to you again soon. Y'all take care.